Vince McMahon and Nick Khan are selling all of their TKO stock. Multiple NXT stars were called up to the main roster last night, and we've got an update on Roman Reigns' WWE Return. Stay tuned for all the details. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Vince McMahon potentially, selling off the remainder of his stock. There was talk, I think, September that he was going to list it all, and then I think earlier this month we were talking about the fact he'd listed it. But it stands at 8.02 million shares for Vince, which is around $776 million at the closing price yesterday for TKO. But while the filings suggest McMahon is going to leave the business completely, he's previously listed all of the shares for sale before, as I said. So he sold 8.4 million in November, 5.35 in March, and 3.5 in April. But the interesting thing here is that there's been another name added in the filing, and it's Nick Khan, who's the current WWE president. So he's filed to sell what appears to be all of his holdings of 234,424 shares, which includes restricted stock, which he earned as a company executive. As of right now, apparently he's not sold any shares and remains with the company, but they are all currently listed for sale. According to Sportico, that doesn't guarantee the shares are going to be sold, but filings usually result in shares being bought fairly soon after they're listed, and a spokesperson for TKO has declined to comment on it so far. Yeah, so the Vince McMahon aspect of this isn't too surprising with how he has behaved with his shares since TKO became a company back in September. Obviously, he's filed before to have all of them listed for sale. He sells some, then they come off the market, then they go back on, and he's trying to clearly sell off them all. It does look like this will be the final time that he is selling, and he will sell these. It's very, very likely he will, as Sportico says. Once shares are filed to be sold, they usually go quite quickly. But the major aspect is Nick Khan. Well, I'd heard people say as well that apparently it doesn't guarantee a sale is even around the corner. It could just be a means of having the flexibility to sell as and when. So if you want to be able to sell on like a whim, you can just do it. But at the same time, Nick Khan, somebody who was brought in obviously around the time of the sale, became more and more prominent as the sales talks were heating up. WWE was branching into more and more marketing deals. Nick Khan seemed to be becoming more of a central figure. But for him to be listing everything, including restricted stock, is he looking to get out completely? Is he wanting to move into like a new sphere? Is there going to be a team that replaces him, or is he going to stay with the company but not have the shares? There's so many options, I guess. It is a strange one. There's a lot of speculation right now about it on social media. There's been no confirmation, of course, that he will be leaving the company or what he's planning on doing with these shares. It is just very noteworthy that he has listed all of them, and it is a case of if he sells them, then he won't have any stake in the company. It does make it very easy to leave at any point should he decide to. But we will, I guess we'll find out more as more breaks on it. Yeah, I'm assuming the second that any stock gets sold, there's going to be people with alerts set, just ready to be like, "Whoa, it's happening!" It's happened. But moving to last night, just to go back to the draft on last night's SmackDown, as usual, we saw some returning faces, didn't we? We did indeed. Now it was all over social media that there was going to be some legends appearing. We've seen it in the past few years, but we saw on last night Michelle McCool get signed to SmackDown and win the belt. Yeah, bring back the Divas title, the butterfly. Michelle McCool and Tori Wilson returned to help announce the picks for Raw and SmackDown in the second round of the draft. Alongside this, we then saw the return of the Dudley Boys. Bubba Ray Dudley and Devon Dudley announced the third round picks, while former SmackDown GM and Hall of Famer Teddy Long and other WWE Hall of Famer JBL announced the fourth round picks. We got to see Teddy Long come back. JBL was like, I don't know why, I was like, I just wasn't expecting to see you for like ages. It feels like I've not seen you outside of a pre-show. For a very long time. Since that Baron Corbin thing where he was like the new wrestling god and he was all the money aspect. But it's great to see them bring back legends for the draft. It's just it's kind of funny that these legends who probably don't watch, not all of them are keeping up with the product and stuff. But at the same time, I think it's another reason for lapsed fans to maybe tune in. It's another shareable thing where people today who haven't watched wrestling in years are going to go, oh, they were back last night, look at that way, and share it. So I think you're going to get more sort of social stuff out of that, but it's just nice to have legends back anyway, isn't it?
One thing it's not going to help is Bully Ray on Busted Open Radio when he does criticize certain things.
But you drafted him.
People will
buddy.
point to this. Yes, exactly.
But as part of that draft, multiple NXT names were called up to the main roster during the draft this year. Carmelo Hayes was drafted in the first round to SmackDown, which is massive.
Massive.
Like, absolutely massive. He was the second pick overall, but he'd go on to face Cody Rhodes in the main event of last night's SmackDown. Alongside Hayes, we had Kiana James moving from NXT onto Monday night, so she was drafted to Raw, and announced on social media following SmackDown, Baron Corbin is going to be returning to the main roster at SmackDown following his NXT stint. And
buzzing for Baron.
I'm excited to have Baron Corbin back, because now Baron Corbin has done, it feels, everything the company has asked.
Yep.
Give him some freedom. Let's see what Baron Corbin can do.
Put the world title on him. He should beat Cody Rhodes.
Just comes in. He needs the spoiler. Just absolutely I think ruins it.
This is the perfect time to bring Baron Corbin back to the main roster, because they're going to France next week, and the French love Baron Corbin for some reason. I mean, I understand it. I also really enjoy Baron Corbin. But the French adore Baron Corbin. So if they can get him on Backlash last minute, absolutely do it. One thing though, he won't be alongside his War Dogs tag team partner, because Braun Breaker, despite SmackDown and Raw fighting over him for months for a big money contract, he has just been drafted to Raw. So it's like, he's not going to be on SmackDown.
They've broken them up. What's the point? Just send them both back down. Just send them back. Just cancel everything. All of it. Undo it.
The big thing is though, Carmelo.
Bubba Ray's crying.
He is crying.
Carmelo's huge. For an NXT star to get like this level of a debut is massive. For the main roster.
He got drafted ahead of Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
So like it went in order. Bianca Belair
into its future.
Number 1, Bianca Belair to SmackDown. Number 2, Jey Uso to Raw. Number 3, Carmelo Hayes. So he was the second pick for SmackDown. He went to SmackDown. Seth Rollins to Raw. You're looking at that top 4, and that is a fresh top 4.
Yeah.
That is looking good for the future of the company.
Well, you mentioned Bianca Belair. It was revealed last night on SmackDown that Bianca's going to be teaming with Jade Cargill to take on the Kabuki Warriors for the women's tag titles at Backlash next weekend. They've been teasing going for the titles soon, but alongside this, Bayley's going to be defending her championship against Naomi and Tiffany Stratton after the number 1 contenders match between them was interrupted by the newly drafted Nia Jax.
Yeah, Nia Jax is on SmackDown now. She got drafted from Raw.
We've also got Randy Orton and Kevin Owens teaming up to take on the Bloodline, Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga. There was a whole furore with them last night, back and forth.
Yeah.
They were going to beat up Heyman, and then Kevin Owens jumped the backstage, thankfully, and it's all flared up, and then Orton came out to save the day a bit later. It's worth watching. Watch it. But yeah, the night before Backlash, we've also got A-Town Down Under defending their tag titles against the Street Profits after they earned their title opportunity last week.
They did indeed. I'm excited for all of these matches. Backlash is looking like a fairly good show. I'm very excited for it, and also the fact that it's going to be in a great time zone for us, Sam. It's going to be so nice.
It's like an hour ahead?
Yeah. Just an hour. Next Saturday, we get a nice normal time WWE pay-per-view, and I cannot wait. I think Bianca and Jade are shoo-ins to win the tag titles from the Kabuki Warriors. I think Team RKO is going to lose, surely.
Well, you got to, yeah.
It's Tama Tonga's debut match in WWE.
He's got to just go on a tear.
Bayley defending that title, though. If Jade and Bianca win, and they've got that partnership with Naomi that we saw at WrestleMania, will they want to put the belt on Naomi to have the 3 of them with the belts?
They're gonna
or do you keep that on Bayley?
You've got to keep it with Bayley for now, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit too soon to go tearing the title away from her.
You can't count out Tiffany Stratton either.
No.
Because she's very, very popular right now.
Massively popular. So there's many ways it could go.
Yeah.
But just going to close this one out now with, again, an update sort of stemming from that backstage situation with Paul Heyman. But he announced on last night's WWE SmackDown that Roman Reigns voluntarily withdrew himself from the WWE Draft and is now not eligible to be drafted to either Raw or SmackDown. Solo Sikoa found out about this and was like, we been drafted? And it was like, well, Roman, and people don't really know what... if they draft the Bloodline, who they get in, because you keep adding new members. And then Tama gets out of the car and it got very threatening. It was like, oh, they're going to kill him. They're finally going to kill him.
They're going to
He's going to be
destroy
just
him.
like a streak, like a crayon. They're just going to turn him into a crayon. But yeah, no, the Roman is ineligible, and so the bloodline are kind of in this weird limbo status, I guess.
So,
around Roman, and when Roman does eventually come back, whenever that might be, because Heyman makes it clear Roman's not going to be returning in the immediate future.
Yeah, so Roman's not back. The rest of the bloodline on SmackDown, you would assume that Roman would appear alongside them when he does come back. But I think the big update that it's not the immediate future. It was very smart of them to take Roman out of the draft, because why wouldn't Raw and SmackDown want to draft him number one?
Well, every now and then you need a free agent, right? Like, you need a free agent that can kind of float and everybody's vying for halfway through the year.
It would definitely make sense if as a free agent, as WWE's biggest star, alongside Cody.
Yeah.
Raw's going to Netflix in January, and I imagine both Netflix and Fox both want a piece of that Roman Reigns pie.
I'd imagine so. So getting them across both shows will be fantastic.
Yeah. Or them. USA, actually, for SmackDown when they move later this year.
Well, that was it for your second dose of lovely bumper weekend wrestling news. Keep it with us here on the channel for plenty more content. The podcast is up. We've, of course, got all of the coverage heading into Backlash next week coming up. Yeah. So make sure you stick with us here. We'll be back later on as well if any more news does break. So catch you in a bit.